Alright guys, and welcome to the teaser of a potential short story project that I may or may not continue to work on. It really depends on whether people like the project and whether it gains enough popularity. The intention with this project is to release an episodic podcast of multiple short stories on the major podcast platforms like for instance Spotify. These short stories will be based on the world and characters that I have developed over the past 10 years through various different manuscripts. But anyway, let's chit-chat and let's actually get on with the story. Charlotte Wilson was a girl in her teens. Oak brown hair with a friendly face, normally seen wearing her uniform by the villagers of Little Stonethwaite. She had been missing for 3 weeks. The Lord's men had searched their lands like hawks hunting mice, but there was no trace of her. They searched the rivers, the woods, and the cellars of every fisherman's hut, but they had found nothing. The Lord's apparent wisdom had determined that the girl had simply run away and had done a good job at concealing her escape. But before the Lord's men could go back to picking up tankards and tavern girls, another person went missing. The candle maker, a quiet gentleman on his way back from trading goods with a neighbouring village. His mangled body dangled from Devil's Bridge, held up by his sinewy veins and arteries sprawling from the crevices of the rock like the roots of a tree. Not long after, the Order of Winter was consulted, for a professional was needed. Rylan's gust glider battled the turbulence of the slate-black clouds over the Masongill countryside, a small aerial ship with sails capable of flight due to the enchanted gyroscope inside its hull. This gave the gust glider lift and allowed the pilot to turn in any direction he wanted through the air. Rylan had equipped the vessel with a waterproof tent and a small flameless hearth that he was huddled against for heat, while he read over his assignment brief one last time. One citizen missing, girl, age 14, of a victim local candle maker, mutilated. Not a random attack, since the nature of the remains were left intentionally in an artistic manner to resemble a symbol according to accounts. Possible supernatural suspect, as the body was decapitated and the head was missing, including the heart, characteristic kill of a Dullahan, but there are no known accounts of Dullahans killing more than one victim and lingering in one place to ensue multiple killings. Proceed with caution and investigate the crime scene meticulously. Still don't know whether the girl is dead, thought Rylan as he glided over the last hill to enter the valley of Longdale. He adjusted the glider slightly in the direction of Castle Lipton and reduced her speed. As he landed in the courtyard, the Lord's hound barked and the wind jostled the great gate. His presence was made very clear very quickly. The courtyard was largely empty apart from muddy wet puddles, a tree with dead branches, and a lone small horse who seemed to be very excited by chasing the moving shadows that the branches created. "I presume you're the gentleman from the Order?" asked the Lord's Chamberlain, a man with a face as wrinkly as wilting fruit, but young sleeked black hair and dressed smarter than many a young prince. Rylan nodded and asked if there was somewhere he could lasso his gust glider. The Chamberlain sorted the job and gave him directions to the Lord and stressed that he needed to go there immediately, as the Lord was soon going to bed. Fortunately, Rylan's waterproofing had kept his dark green armour dry. It was made from the skin, bone and scales of various creatures he had killed, but fashioned in a pristine and sophisticated style that would not look out of place equipped on the Kingsguard. Advantageously, the material was considerably lighter and more manoeuvrable than steel plate, yet just as tough. The smiths belonging to the Order of Spring were acutely skilled and viciously secretive about their craft. Rylan grabbed the closest torch he could find and began inspecting the castle corridor. The splendourous wealth displayed in the corridor amused Rylan. He hoped that his dealings with the Lord would be brief, as he could rarely abide the pretentious tones of a nobility for very long. The Lord's viewing room had a gigantic fireplace at least 3 times the size of the average fireplace you would expect inside a castle. It stretched wall to wall and had a bonfire inside of it. Rylan could even feel the heat from around the corner. "Ah, there he is, the man from the Order," said the Lord. "Lord Ashmore at your service." "Rylan at yours, my lord," he replied. "No need for formalities in my home. We're not in the capital. Best leave that nosh behind. Would you like a brew? Tea? We call it brew in this place of the world. Don't ask why. We're not all witches." Tea's fine. Lord Ashmore was similarly old to the Chamberlain, but he had white, wrinkly hair and a beard to match. He told Rylan to sit beside him in the armchairs beside the fire. They sipped their tea and exchanged small talk, mostly composed of Lord Ashmore asking him questions about the capital. You see, I used to live in the capital when I was a young man. It was much different back then. Tavern brawls were a regular sighting, along with protests and dogfighting. Every time I go back, it seems more peaceful, you know. Better policed. It's definitely changed, replied Rylan. Probably for the better. You want to feel safe when you visit the markets. The Lord's eye began to play a memory as he glared into the fire. There's been another killing since I contacted the Order, said Lord Ashmore, taking a quick look at Rylan before he went back to staring at the fireplace. How recent? Asked Rylan. This morning, replied the Lord with a slightly higher and surprisingly calm voice. In the village we found a body hanging from the tavern sign. Similar to the candlemaker? Asked Rylan. Yeah. Strung up by her veins. Head was still attached this time, though. Any other body parts missing? She was mostly intact. Guts hanging out, though. There was a bartender. She was only 17. Sophie, I think her name was. The baker's daughter. The villagers are terrified. They barely even leave their homes. It's why I'm forking out good money to get this sorted. Our trade is down massively, and people are too afraid to even come to us. If my people won't leave their houses, then nothing's going in and nothing's going out. I don't want this to be the end of the settlement. There's good, hard-working people here. We are prospering. At least we were. I can get to work right now. I need to begin by seeing the murder scene. Oh, right, well, good man. I'll get a guard to take you there right now. There was an unnatural amount of fog suffocating the bridge. Rylan knew this was no natural power of the weather, some spectral forces in control of this fog. He could hear the guard's chainmail jingling, whether he was generally cold or losing his nerve. Either way put a smile on Rylan's face. Are you cold, boy? He asked. A little, sir, the young man replied. Are you secretly a prodigy with that club, or were you press-ganged into this assignment? The latter, sir. What's your name? Harry, sir. Finally, Rylan turned to the boy and said, Well, Harry, stay here and stay on your toes. And if you hear crying children, under pain of death, do not follow me, as he walked into the moon-white fog.